We've all been there, but it's that nagging thing that I really had to start putting the focus on it with my clients too. Like we need to handle that. That needs to be taken care of effortlessly. That's the word I use. The goal with
Yeah.
payroll is this handled effortlessly, and that is through proper cash flow, right? Welcome to the Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help home service pros cut through the noise, sharpen their business tools, and reclaim the profit, freedom, and impact they've been missing. I'm your host, Richard Walsh, Profit Freedom Coach, and I'm here to help you stop grinding and start growing. Let's sharpen the spear. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. Avi Pinsky is with us today, and you're going to love this one. I'm going to love this one, and that's why I'm having him on. So Avi, as we always do on STS, no one knows Avi better than Avi. So Avi, bring us the backstory, bring us up to speed, and we're going to tear into the conversation.
I like to think I know myself pretty well, but yeah, you never know. There's always surprises. So, I'm Avi Pinsky, originally hail from Los Angeles, California. Had a short stint in the New York, New Jersey area, but I currently live in Israel the last 9+ years. I am a business finance doctor. What does that mean? I make sure that your business gets and stays financially healthy. A healthy business is one that's growing, it's one that's profitable, and it's one that's producing consistent positive cash flow that you can use to fund your lifestyle, pay your bills. Just like nobody builds any machine or any structure without a purpose. You didn't build your business without a purpose, and that purpose was to feed yourself, to pay your bills, to pay for your kids' tuition, to pay for your mortgage. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses don't have that. Maybe there's profit on paper. When it comes to the cash flow that's available for the business owner to take out, a lot of times that's lacking. So I help you make sure that you're not falling into that category, but that there's actually something there for you to take home at the end of the day, so you can pay your bills and do what you want the business to accomplish, which is pay for your life.
Yeah, I love it. I've been in, the trades and service for 35 years, coaching now and stuff too, but you see it often, right? I mean, cash flow is a big thing we're going to hit on today because people a lot of owners kind of focus on revenue, and I call it the bad scorecard. It's the bad number to look at. It's important. Don't get me wrong. We want to sell and we want to make that, but it's really about what you're keeping. Okay, when it's all said and done, we not gross profit, real net profit. We want to really talk about that, and I think the struggle, Avi, is really these guys get going and they're not. I think to keep it very, very simple, they're not paying attention to their numbers. I think it comes down to that because we're all out working, and we're doing what we do and everything else, right? And the business part, and we say this often, and I tell people this from my first 20 years in business, I just made lots of money. Isn't that business? That's all I thought business was. I just built this really cool. Some people pay a lot of money, and I'm a businessman. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit.
It's both the fact that they don't pay attention to it because they're so busy doing the business itself, right? Building the houses, doing the plant, whatever the operations of the business are. So they're not focusing on the numbers, and even that little bit of time that they are focusing on it, they're not understanding it. Because let's face it, the business accounting is not written in a very simple to understand way for the layman, for the layperson. It's written in what I call accountanese, and you need somebody who can translate that into English and translate it into what actions should be taken in the business so that it could become more profitable. Like I said, a lot of times people are chasing that gross revenue number when they're not necessarily paying as much attention to the profits, and they don't always understand how certain decisions that they're making impact the profits. And that's really a lot more important. Not that you bring in a lot of money, but that you're actually making money and that you're profitable. And even less understood is how that translates into the bank statements, into the cash flow of the business. A lot of times they'll have a profitable business. They'll go to the banker and they'll say, okay, I made, according to my accountant, I made $1,000 this past month, or, $1 million over the year, whatever it is. Can I withdraw some of that? And the banker looks at their statement and says, I don't really see $1 million in this account. I see, and maybe you're overdrawn. So how to make that transition from revenue into profit and then even further into cash flow is something that's really, unfortunately, very misunderstood, and really can make a huge impact if with a little bit of understanding and how to pull the levers. It can really make a huge difference in the take home pay for the owner.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and just cash flow itself, to understand operations, right? And we'll go to the one big one that never goes away and is the most painful: payroll. Okay. It's always there, right? Always come every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is. And cash flow is its lifeblood, right? Because
Yeah,
we've all been there struggling on Thursday, hoping we can close the deal before the end of the day so we get money for Friday payroll. We've all been there, but and it's that nagging thing that I really had to start putting a focus on it with my clients too. Like, we need to handle that. That needs to be taken care of effortlessly. That's the word I use. The goal with
yeah,
payroll is this handled effortlessly, and that is through proper cash flow, right?
yeah, 100%. Uh, it's not just payroll; it's really anybody that you have to pay, right? It's all of your vendors, your suppliers as well, right? There's only so far you can push them down the road before they start, making problems for you. And people have to get used to the concept. Not necessarily, I don't think every business owner has to be an expert in every penny and dollar in their numbers, because it's not really realistic. They're focusing on other aspects of the business that they have to. But they have to get at least familiar with the concepts of a cash flow cycle, right? And that's just essentially from the time that you lay out the first dollar to start servicing a client or working on a project or whatever it is. From the time you lay down that first dollar until you start collecting on that on that revenue, right? How long is that window? Is it a 10-day window? Is it a 30-day window? Is it a 100-day window? Right? And try to start learning about what levers you can pull in order to minimize that window. Because the bigger that window is, the more cash you need to infuse into the business to fund the business while you're waiting for that cash to come in. And that's really where those cash flow issues stem from. It's that you have to lay out a certain amount of money before you're collecting. And again, that's the issue. That's the big issue of running a business financially.
Yeah, for sure. And then we get kind of sucked into lines of credit, which are good in the right place, but then we become a dependent on the line of credit. And
Yeah.
now we build our business with this weird cycle that, oh, I'll pull 10 grand from line of credit, then I'll get it, then I'll pay it back. And you start doing that. Like, well, okay, it works. Don't get me wrong. I think everyone should have a nice line of credit that they can tap into when things are tough or whatever. But you got to relook at your system. Like, you got to build the system so you don't have that issue. And I heard a great saying of one of my clients shared with me that he was told, and people were talking about deposits and getting money up front and doing this. And he said the guy had the great thing. Someone kind of questioned him about it. He goes, well, listen, I promised my wife I'm never going to use her money to build my business. And I'm like, dude, I love that one. That's good. What's someone going to say, right? That it just makes so much sense. It's like, and but when you think about it, Avi, it's like, well, that's actually a great mindset, because that is kind of what you're doing. Because that's why you don't have
Yeah.
profit. You're not taking a paycheck. Everyone gets paid but you this week, this month, or whatever, or this season, on that. So it's just kind of interesting to keep in that perspective. But really, let's talk about like designing your cash flow system, right? Like, because I don't think people kind of get how that works. They kind of just they're checking the bank statement or the account daily or weekly, what they got. Okay, I can pay these, right? So it might
Yeah.
not be the best method. That's all I'm saying. Let's talk about what might be better.
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of taking out lines of credit, that's essentially just one of three ways that you can generate cash for the business, right? And cash is really the blood flow. It's what fuels the engine of the business. So you need to be able to get an infusion of cash somehow. And there's three main ways that you could do that. One is by a line of credit, like you said, taking on more debt. Another one is by investing in the business more, or taking on new investors or whatever, just some sort of owner uh, investment into the business. And the third one is that the business is profitable and producing cash. Now, of those three, there's obviously one that's more preferred than others, right? If the business itself can fuel itself and provide for itself, and you as well, and not just provide for itself, but allow you to also take out something from it and gain something from it, that's obviously the best way for everybody involved. Taking on more loans, that obviously includes a lot of risk, right? What if you don't get that cash infusion to repay it? So at certain times and in certain situations, it makes sense. If an analysis was done and maybe you need a new piece of equipment and you need that line of credit in order to purchase that equipment, and then that equipment will eventually bring in more cash than the loan itself. So it makes sense. There's going to be a return of investment or an ROI in that piece of equipment. So great, maybe in that situation, it might make sense to take on a line of credit or to take out a loan for that. If sometimes you needed to bring on a new partner, a new investor, so that's a legitimate way to get new cash into the business as well. But there's only so much equity you can sell off in the business before you don't have anything else to give. So the best way is if the business itself can produce that cash. So that's obviously number one. And it oftentimes just requires a little bit of analysis on what's going right, what's going wrong, where is the cash going, and how do we stop it from going there and make it go into the places that we want it to. So oftentimes you just need somebody to come in, some sort of CFO type of role. It could be your accountant, it could be your bookkeeper. Unfortunately, those people are oftentimes not really focused on how to make changes in a business. They're so focused on what happened in the past, reporting what happened, doing compliance work for what happened. You as the business owner have to be focused on the future. Right? How do I make tomorrow better than yesterday and better than today? And they don't really, bookkeepers and accountants, there's a place for them. I am one, right? I am a CPA, so I do have that background. I don't want to dump on my fellow accountants too much, but they don't have the bandwidth to discuss with you, okay, so what should you do differently in your business? Oftentimes that takes somebody who's more of a CFO type of mindset, somebody who's thinking about strategy, thinking about projections, budgeting, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think when I think about like when you start a business, and I started my first one when I was young, right? And you're making money, right? You make money, and then I had a simple process. Okay. I knew how much it cost. Like if I have to get these materials, okay. So I need at least that for my deposit. Okay. So it's like a 50%, and then I'd make my numbers above that. No, there's no secret to this. It's like, okay, then I make money. I'm like, okay, I pay for materials and I made $1,000. Okay, that's really good. I'm debt free. My business, right? And you start doing that, you're like, well, this is a pretty good system, right? I do this, they pay me up front for materials. I don't lay out any of my cash. It's OPM, other people's money. Great, do it, get my money, good. But somewhere along the line, you start getting busier, doing bigger projects, and the money's bigger, and you're getting all kinds of excited because you got this pile of cash in front of you, okay, with I am speaking for myself, no financial literacy whatsoever. So all you got is the big eyes and a big pile of cash, and you start buying things, and you're just going because you're gonna make more. I always use one of the examples for me was I bought it was like a $53,000 skid steer because it was really cool. I already had one, but I'm gonna buy that one because it'll do more, build more, lift more, all the kind of stuff. Cool. And because I had the cash and I paid cash and I could, I'm debt free. I thought that was really smart till I realized, I could have rented the same machine for about $5,000 for the season and had $45,000 to invest and have it making my money. So, you got to be careful. Again, these are just dumb things. I did a lot of dumb things, Avi. I operate at a level of stupid that would probably even astound you. Okay. So, but when you look back on that kind of stuff, it's just a bad decision, right? You think debt free is the way to go. Right. And this is important because there's good debt, bad debt, that whole thing you mentioned a little bit earlier. But I really man, look at this. I own everything. I mean, I owned everything. You know what I owned, though, was depreciating assets.
Yes.
They're
Exactly.
losing money, right? Every day, every year. I'm like, and you spend all this cash on it. And you didn't need to. I could have returned that rental, got a new rental in the spring. Use it again and just do that. And my money's making money. So do you see that often with these businesses? They get caught into that kind of, I just, like for me, that beginning is like, you don't hold to what worked. for some reason you get like, I need to do more and get more. I don't know. I don't know that time that turning point when that happened. But I was just thinking, if you were saying that, I think a lot of people get stuck in that.
Yeah, I mean, boys and their toys.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it
Yeah.
is. I even as an accountant, right? My hobby is woodworking. I've got a whole lot of, I need a whatever. I need a router to build
Yeah.
this one little thing. So let me buy the best router with all the different bits and all the different whatever attachments. And do I really need all of those things for what I'm doing, right? As an accountant who occasionally gets to go into his workshop for an hour or
Right.
so a week, right?
Right.
Do I really need, the high end Makita or Milwaukee? Like, no,
Right.
like I'm okay with the budget things that I can find at Home Depot.
Right.
But we get blinded, and especially when things are going well and we think we're invincible, that's when we're going to get the most blinded. So at that point is kind of when we really need to take a deep breath, take a step back, get some sort of input from the numbers and say, okay, what makes sense with what we're doing? What options are there really out there? Do I really have to get the top of the line skid steer for something that I'm going to use for a season or for, a couple months, and then it's going to go in the garage and, for the winter? Is that really something that I need? Is that really the best usage of my money? And this goes back to what I was saying before. You just need somebody who's looking at the numbers and helping you make these decisions. Because if you're not a financial professional, you don't really know what options are out there, and you don't really know what your decisions are going to do to you down the line. Right? You don't realize that this is a depreciating asset. You might know that, yeah, okay, in 5 years there's going to be a bigger, more shiny, sparkly toy that I'm going to want to get, but you don't realize what it does for the profitability of the business. And like I said, when it's going well, you feel invincible. You do things that are not necessarily in the best interest of the company health wise. I have a client who probably did something very similar. Not in the trade spaces. Somebody who's I don't want to give away too much, but let's just say they grew a little bit faster than their processes and procedures could handle. So now they've got a problem where they've got a certain resource, let's say, that they have too much of this resource and they don't have enough clients to use the resource on. They're paying for that, right? They essentially had a big cash outlay, and now the cash isn't coming in as they expected. So same concept, different application. So having somebody who's looking at the numbers for you, making sure that the cash outlay and the resources that you're buying and that you're putting into your business makes sense, and that there will be an ROI, again, that return on investment. That's something that's critical. Right? Before you make these big decisions, you need somebody to help you with that analysis.
Yeah. I think because a friend of mine had said, good friend of mine, and he's just, my friends love me, but I was a little hardcore and I kind of was a little intimidating, and I'm just doing what I'm doing and no one can do what I do. And I got that. And he said one thing, he goes, I think what you need is a bean counter. That's all he said. I'm like, yeah, 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 okay, whatever. But he's absolutely right, right? Just to your point, like you need someone who's not emotionally attached to your business to be your counsel to say, no, do this. Okay. Because I guarantee you, when it's your deal, you're doing it. Like I said, and if you're a little bit of cash rich, you're just going to make the wrong decisions because you're feeding your ego, and all that kind of stuff. And you're kind of getting into this. You're like, you really need that outside counsel because they're not attached. They don't care. What they're going to do is give
Yeah.
you the right thing to do. Okay. And
Yes.
you can, I always tell people, you can just tell them, you can thank me later. Like I tell my kids, you might like it now. You can thank me later because this is the right thing to
Yeah.
do, and do the right thing. And then you'll be happy later. Okay. We don't,
Yeah.
so I think that's really important. We talk a lot about coaching and uh, from an accounting, a tax strategy standpoint, right? There's different things, like you said early on. There's your CPAs, but they are about compliance, right? They're making sure all the
Yeah.
dots, I's are dotted and T's are crossed and everything's right place. So you don't go to jail. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Keep that guy around. Okay, I don't want to go to jail. But now, how do I keep more of what I'm making?
Yeah.
Now we step into this tax strategy, right? And then the next day is that, like you said, either like a fractional CFO maybe to begin with, or someone who's really understanding where this money's going inside the company, and they under, they understand margins, like real margins, not your in
Exactly.
your head margin. Oh, I make like 60%. please quantify that for me. And they can't. And that's when you got to have that hard conversation, right? You know, you've probably given a lot of those conversations. But so I just think I just want people to really understand the importance of these outside eyes that come in, because it can make or break your business, you know,
Yes.
having them or
Yeah.
not having them. It really does. So talk about that a little bit, because, and it's not they come in one time and tell you to do something. It's an ongoing, right? A coach doesn't coach for one game and doesn't show up for two more, you know, or misses
Yeah.
practice. You know, they coach all the time. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So going back to the bean counter, you need the right bean counter for the right scenario. Like, staying out of jail, very important, right? It's an
Yeah.
important thing to have a bookkeeper and to have a tax accountant who's doing your taxes, doing your books properly so that you stay out of jail. But that's not something that you're looking at regularly. Maybe you're looking at those numbers once a year. Maybe you're looking at them once a quarter. Are you really understanding them? Is this somebody who you can talk to and ask questions, and they're going to give you sufficient answers that are going to help you in building your business and making it more profitable? Or are they just looking and crunching the numbers and saying, well, here's what you owe in taxes? Yeah, okay, there's a place for both. April 14th, there's a place for the accountant, right? Month end, there's a place for the bookkeeper. But day to day in your business, who's helping you make decisions, right? Who's helping you see the consequences of your actions? Because as we said earlier, it's not just about revenue, right? The what do they say is revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king, right? You need somebody who's going to help you make the decisions that are going to keep cash coming into your business so that you can actually fuel it going forward. And you're not going to make those decisions that are going to make it run out in the middle of a month, or before you have to pay your payroll at the end of on that Friday. So having a bean counters are important. Having the right bean counter can make a huge difference. And if you're not getting somebody, if your accountant, your bookkeeper are not answering your questions sufficiently, they're not helping you make those decisions. First of all, I'm not saying get rid of them, because
Right.
that's normal, right? That isn't their task, but you
Right.
need somebody who can help you with that. If they are up to snuff and they have the bandwidth to handle that as well, that's great. If you can have all the knowledge, consolidated, and things aren't getting lost between your CFO and your CPA and your bookkeeper, so fine, that's great. The chances are they don't have that bandwidth, and the chances are is you are the one that's suffering because you're the one that's not getting the
Yeah.
information you need. They're still completing their books. They're still doing their tax return. They're not suffering at all. What's suffering is you in your decision making. And that's something that as the business owner, you can't let that happen. You need help in figuring out what's the right decision and what's the wrong decision. Because you excel in a certain area, and that area is going to most likely be, and if you're in the trades, it's most likely in the operations, because that's probably where you started. You probably started out on a construction crew, and then you eventually grew your own business, and now you're doing it yourself. You don't have training in a business accounting, right? So that's one of those areas where you're going to need help, and you're going to need some understanding. So you need someone on your team who can be a confidant that can help you make those decisions based on a proper understanding of the numbers and what the numbers are really telling you. Because it's not that the numbers are something that's you know not understandable. Nobody can really, no, there's a story there, and it's a very clear story, and it tells you what you are doing right and what you're doing wrong. All you need is a translator to take it from Accountanese into English, and then into the decision making, really.
Yeah. And I think what's really good about that too is whoever this individual is, they have to be kind of, I'll use the coach term, coaching you like you need to learn it. You don't just
Exactly.
need to be told it.
Exactly.
So we got to add that caveat. Like,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
you got to actually learn it. So when you
Mhm.
look at it, you know, a basic P&L, profit and loss, like
Yeah.
there's only a few things that you can even affect on those, but you've got to look at those weekly. Like
Yeah.
somebody say every month, every quarter. No, it should be weekly, right? We want to look at these numbers. We want to get into this stuff. And again, this stuff I had to learn all the hard way, right? And
Yeah.
what this means. And here's the problem, like with my business too. In the beginning, I had these large influxes of cash, like
Hmm.
six-figure stuff. Like you're
Yeah.
some, I'm talking about me. I'm just some goof, okay, who can move boulders and make beautiful things and weld. And I'm getting like, you get these six-figure kind of wow, that's a lot of dough. You
Um,
have no idea what there's no place to go. Okay, you have no plan for this money. This is the key. Okay,
yeah.
everything needs a home. It needs a place to go when it comes. It can't sit there and tempt you like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just hey, let's go somewhere, like
Yeah.
for a week.
Yeah.
So we
And
gotta,
especially those first few paychecks that you're getting in that range, they're
yeah,
they're blinding. They
yeah,
they very much they shift your brain a little bit
yeah,
and you
and
think
then and
this
that's
is gonna
and
happen forever.
yeah, exactly, and it doesn't. It happened for
Yeah,
me for like
exactly.
20 years until it didn't, and it dried up in a day, like everything ended, right? So you kind of so you really need that good counsel. People are talking, well, it's Parkinson's law, right? If money doesn't have a place to go, it's going to evaporate. We've all done it.
Yeah.
I come up to you, Avi, you're a good dude, man. Here's $100 just for being a good dude, and you put that in your pocket. 3 days later, you're like, didn't I have $100? Where did I even get that from? But I'm sure I had. You don't know. You went to lunch, bought food for some whatever, and had good took kids out, whatever it is, and it's gone.
Yeah, for me, it's
Because
my kids. It is like they
yeah,
just take it
right,
somehow.
yeah, yeah. So it's just who are, and by the way, they're never off the payroll. Okay. The kids are always on the payroll. So you got to plan for that. But it really is that whole focus. The money is so hard. It's kind of this almost taboo, right? What did our parents back in the day say? You don't talk about religion, politics, or money. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the dumbest thing in the world, the three things that matter probably the most in the whole world, they're telling you don't talk about it. So what do? You
Yeah,
don't learn about it either. So
exactly.
in the money thing is
Exactly.
what I'm talking about, right? None of us probably had a lot of good guidance in that way. I try to do that
Yeah,
differently with my kids and stuff, as I brought them up because
for
of my own
sure.
experience. But it's just, I just really try to make that emphasis because I see it with the people I work with as they're again gaining traction with the business, they're growing. This stuff's great, but it's like it's never too early to get in and look for the help with that, right? I think that's the misconception. Oh, you got to be doing 7 figures and you got to be doing this. Like, man, no, you might not even get to 7 figures. Only 4% of all small businesses make that number. You're
Yeah,
probably in the
yeah,
96%. And like, if you want to
yeah.
get to the 4%, you better do the right things with your money, right?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's really just don't be shy to ask questions. That there's a saying that if you're somebody who's constantly embarrassed not asking questions, so you're never going to learn anything. Nothing's ever going to change. You're never going to advance. On the flip side, you need the right teacher. Right? If a teacher is going to constantly make you feel stupid for asking certain questions, or ignore your questions, or not explain things to the extent that you need in order to understand, that's not the right teacher for you. Right? You have to find the right person to help you in your situation where you can get the understanding that you need. Not that you're ever going to replace them, because maybe you will at some point if your business is simple enough and you get the right person that can really teach you this stuff. So yeah, you might be able to take that CFO hat back from them and put it
Mhm.
back on your own head, assuming you have the bandwidth for it yourself and you want to do it.
Right.
Right? Some people don't like numbers, which I don't understand. I love numbers, but some people don't like numbers. That's fine. Um, but if you're able to do it yourself and you want to do it yourself, that's great. But you need somebody who can help you understand it, even if they are going to be the permanent CFO or the fractional CFO, whatever. It still needs to be somebody who can talk to you and can teach you and can help you understand. And they're not gonna get frustrated if you're gonna ask the same question every single month. But they'll be patient with you and eventually help you get to a point where maybe you can't do it yourself, but at least you're clear and you understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because if you're the business owner and you don't understand why you're making the decisions that you're making, you just say, well, this is my CFO told me to do it. That's not the right CFO for you. That's not the right bookkeeper. That's not the right accountant. It needs to be somebody with patience, somebody who can understand your concerns and can help you understand their answers, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you don't have a general working knowledge, okay, here's the bad part, even worse than what you were talking about, is you will be taken advantage of. And I'm talking
Yeah.
from embezzlement to just lazy. I mean, human nature is to be lazy. Okay, so let's be real. All right. And that includes accountants and finance guy. What they're going to do as little as they need to do. Okay. They're it's rare when you get the guy who's so keyed up about saving you as much as possible and doing this. Like they got to have a passion, right, to do that kind of stuff. But that education aspect, they need to teach you this stuff, how to read it, and like not like tell you, but like show you, then have you tell them what they showed you,
Yeah.
right? And then you get this understanding. Now you can make those good decisions. You can bring them in, you can talk, you can ask the question, go bounce it back and forth, and then make a quality decision, right? Because here's another key. There's that great saying that people who win or are successful make decisions quickly and change their mind slowly, whereas people who are losers make their mind slowly and change quickly. Okay, there's a downside to that. That this quick decision making with a lack of knowledge is going to put you in the tank. Okay, and I can speak from experience on all this stuff. Okay? So like I like doing things quickly. I make a decision. Oh, right. So, but again, when you're in a completely, I know nothing. I just again look at the statement, look at the account that day, and there's no money. I make a decision. You can't make a daily decision on a fluctuating number. Okay. Something that changes with the day or the hour, right? So that's important to understand. I see it with clients of mine too. We run hard. We're entrepreneurs. We're innovators. We're out there doing stuff. We're taking ground. That's what we do. Okay. We have to make quick decisions. And this is why getting this basic understanding on these levels that we don't want to do as a full-time gig. No interest in doing that stuff, right? I'm the visionary. I'm a founder. I'm not leading. I focus on only certain things in my business. Everything else should be delegated and handled, right? Systemized and everything else. But just that general knowledge, you'll be astounded at the change in decision making that you start to do and how you start to do it, because there's a different thought process that's involved now because you get the possible consequences or the unintended consequences, right?
Yeah. I mean, I also said a lot of times business owners, when you don't have that understanding of what the impact of your decisions are, you end up going based on your whim. You end up going based on your feelings, based on your instincts. Unfortunately, that's oftentimes wrong and incorrect. And it's oftentimes going to lead to more pain down the road. You need somebody who's going to help you organize the facts, organize the data so that you're making informed decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that every decision is going to be right, but at least you have a better fighting chance, right, of getting to that 4%, right, of getting to that growth. It's not even the 4. Think about you're talking about how big somebody can get, and it's only a 4% chance of reaching into millions of dollars. I'm trying to keep. Sometimes people just need help staying out of the 50% of businesses that close in a couple of years, right? Getting above that 50% margin, right, of failed businesses. That takes data, it takes analysis. That the bottom 50% is full of people who are going based on their whim and their instincts. That 4% at the top, probably none of them are going on instincts alone, right? They're having some sort of data gathered for them.
Yeah, I'll put it down to one word: reports. Okay, you need reports.
Well, not just reports. You need to understand the reports.
Well, yeah, but I didn't even know the report. What does that mean? I only know report to me, so I can tell you what to do. That's all I. That's the only thing I do. I'm a Marine. That's all I know on reports. But like you start going, well, I should be able to have access to stuff with a couple of clicks, right? You need to be able to see things. When I ask someone, well, show me this and show me that, and they can't. They need to be able to pull that up, right? But these reports are these are the things you build so you can see at a glance where you're at in these different areas, right? So, and we're not going to get into how to build a report and all that, but I'm just saying there has to be, again, young in business too, you're doing everything in your head. You believe you close at 90%. I'm a 90% closer.
Yeah.
No, you're closing like 20.
You really?
Like you don't know because you don't have any number. You're not tracking, not measuring, you're not doing any of that stuff. And I think that comes later if you make it to later, where you start to understand, or you find someone who actually knows what they're doing. They say, well, how are you measuring this? How do you track it? You can't improve what you don't measure, and you don't really have measuring. You're just eyeballing it. You're literally just eyeballing it. You feel like you're moving a lot. There's the great saying, don't confuse motion with progress. A rocking horse stays in motion, doesn't make any progress, right? You're on the rocking horse. Most guys are on the rocking horse, right? The hamster wheel and all that kind of stuff. So that's why learning this stuff from an expert and having them operate in your business and kind of teach you, like you pay attention, you show up to the meetings, you ask the questions, is going to do wonders for your decision-making process, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it needs to be data that's simple and organized and understandable. Right? And unfortunately, you're talking about those reports, P&L, balance sheet, they're not so understood. Cash flow statement, even less understood. Those are things written by accountants for accountants.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to figure out how to put it into English. You need an accountant who's going to translate it to you into English. You need a CFO who can speak to you in English. And sometimes that means that they have to make their own, different reports. They might have to rearrange it in a
Right.
way that you can understand, and put it into language that's simple enough for you to understand.
Yeah, exactly. I think all of this, when it comes down to it, is really having this understanding of the stuff you probably don't want to have an understanding of. You want to do your
Yeah.
business, you want to do your thing, right? We all want to do that, and this is kind of the hard work in business. But let's talk about one more thing here, and that's as an owner actually getting paid. Because there's another thing I
Yes.
see: they're paid last, you're paid in the middle.
Yep.
You'll skip a week because
Yep.
you need to pay everybody else so they can keep working, and that whole trauma cycle that so many
Yeah.
people live in for decades sometimes, right? So let's talk about
Yeah.
that, because that people need to get that priority straight. So speak to that a little bit,
Yeah.
Avi.
So that goes back to my why, right? That's why I'm a business finance doctor. That's why I'm not a fractional CFO, right? Fractional CFO is somebody who is confusing, right? What's a CFO? What do I need him for in my construction or plumbing or welding business? I don't need a CFO. That's for Apple and Google and those big companies. What do I need a CFO for? But every business needs to be healthy because every business needs to provide for the owner. That's why you have a business. You don't have a business to pay your employees. You don't have a business so that the business can continue going. Right? You have a business because you need to make a living and you have to support your family. You have to pay your bills. You have to pay your mortgage. You have to pay for your kids' tuition. You have to pay for your cars. And if the business is not providing that, there is a problem here, right? And that's a serious conversation that you have to have, first of all, with yourself to make sure you're clear on what are your goals with your business. And then with your financial professionals so they can help you get there. If they're not, if the finance person in your business is not making sure that your personal finances are also taken care of to some extent, what are they doing? Right? They're making sure the machine runs. That's very nice. Okay, it's good that the machine is running, but what's the purpose of the machine? Right? If I build a machine for you and I put it on your desk and I tell you, here, Richard, I got this wonderful machine for you. It's an amazing machine. It runs, and whenever it breaks down, whenever anything happens to it, it self-diagnoses and it self-fixes the problem. You say, wow, that sounds like an amazing machine. What does the machine do? No, I told you, it sits on your desk and it self-diagnoses and it self-cures itself. It re-oils itself, lubricates, does it all. Okay, but what does it do? There's a problem here. The machine needs to produce something, right? The
Right.
machine needs to have an output, right? Maybe it makes coffee. If it does all that and it makes coffee, great, wonderful coffee maker. But if it just sits there, it's just decoration. And your business has to be a machine that's doing its purpose, right? Every business has a purpose and every machine has a purpose. And as the business owner, your primary purpose is to is to survive, right? Is to pay your bills, to get something out of it, right? It's not a charity. Your business is not a non-for-profit. If it is a non-for-profit, if you want it to be a non-for-profit, great. There's ways to work that also, but that also needs cash to survive, right? Non-for-profits also need to have, to some degree, a profit to continue them to keep going. But chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, that you are not a non-for-profit. So you need to be able to take something out. And your main goal has to be your paying, right? Getting you yourself paid at the end of the day. Because if you can't pay your bills, the business is going to have to eventually close, and then everything else goes to put, right? Then there is no payroll to be paid, no vendors get paid, no houses get built, no pipes get laid, no welding gets done. So the first objective, even though you're like you said, it happens last, but we always have to begin with the end in mind. We have to begin with that ultimate goal in mind. And if that goal is not being fulfilled, there's a serious problem here that has to get addressed right away.
Yeah, it'll suck the life out of you. It'll bring you down. You'll start to hate the business. You're gonna end up quitting because you
Yeah,
can't figure out a way. You seem like you're doing all this, but you're not keeping enough. I'm not, and you go into those questions. Hey, what if you had to replace you? How much would you pay someone to do everything you do? Yeah, you'd be
yeah,
shocked at that number, but you ain't making that. How are you going to pay someone?
exactly,
Okay, so we got
exactly.
simple questions. We're like, yeah, and I was that way. I operated that way for a while too, but then realized I need to be paid first. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm the risk taker here. I'm the builder. I'm the guy putting all this together. Yes, I'm feeding families. I'm proud of that. But I need to feed my family. I got to be proud
sure.
about
How are
feeding
you
my
feeding your
family.
family?
And I want them to eat better than everybody else. Okay, just saying.
Yeah,
Okay, so that takes a little more, right? That's why I do that. I'm not doing it just for the money, but I can't help more people if I don't have money.
for
Poor
sure.
people don't give people
Exactly,
jobs. Okay, so
exactly.
I need we got to keep the cash flow happening, right? I got to be paid. We got to have a schedule for that and not miss it. And if you're married, whether you're male or female, your spouse, you need a consistent income. You want to make your family hate owning businesses? Don't pay yourself. Pay yourself
Yeah,
inconsistently where you live in lack all the time. None of your kids will ever take over that business. Okay.
yeah,
People are going to look at that. That's misery. Why would I do that? I'm going to go work for this
exactly.
guy who promised me a paycheck every Friday and I actually get it, so just kind of putting a bow on all this, I think that is one of the premier things from all the stuff we talked about, Avi, is all of that is so you can do this final thing. Okay. If you get all this other stuff in order, you will be paid first and you'll be paid what you're worth. And
Yeah,
that should be your focus. Because if you can square that away, here's the reality. If you can actually square that away where you're getting paid first and getting paid what you're worth, your business is going to hum. It's going to
yeah,
be a really well-run business because it has to produce that for you. So it's a win-win. Now
yeah.
you got to think that it's
For,
now your business serves you instead of you serving it. And isn't
yeah.
that a better way to go?
Yeah, for sure. And morale is going to improve in the whole business. Everybody's going to do better. You're going to show up with a smile instead of constantly being, overworked yourself and under stress. You'll have a better family life. You'll have a better business life. You'll be able to expand the business out and be able to hire more and provide for more families. But again, like you said, if your business, if your family is not coming first and getting paid first, the whole thing comes crashing down, and then all that good that you were doing with all the production and all the hiring and all the payroll that you were paying and all the all the tables that you were helping put food on, that all goes away. So
Right.
you have to take care of yourself first, and that helps you grow beyond what you even think you can get to. It'll help you grow, leaps and bounds from where you are now.
Yeah. And here's the final thing. All of that, like everyone's going, that sounds great, but you need to understand this is an investment. You have to invest in these experts, coaches, financial people, and suck it up. Don't come crying to me. You can afford it. You can afford anything you want. And you do it. You buy that tool you didn't need. We talked about that earlier. I didn't have to spend that 1,500 on that, but man, is it pretty. Okay. So we get it. It's just where you want to direct it because these early investments or these investments in general are going to pay off in spades down the road. They're going to dial things in. And believe me, I didn't take any coaching for 20 years. There wasn't a lot of coaches, but I didn't take help. And I had people offer me great advice and I took none of it because I told you I operated at a special level of stupid. But if you can grab a hold of that and invest in yourself, which is your business, right?
Exactly.
Get
Yeah.
that, bring these people on like Avi, whoever, work in this stuff, and then watch what it does over a relatively short period of time. Because I always tell people this is time compression. You're taking
Yeah.
Avi's experience, 10, 15, or my experience, 35 years, and I take 10 years to put it into a year. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's how
essentially
you,
what coaching is, right?
right.
Coaching is helping you get where you're trying to get to in a shorter period of time than you could do by yourself.
It's it moves the business needle, as they say, but you
For
see it
sure.
move. It's not creeping. Okay. It's not
Yeah.
on the 30-year plan. Okay. You're like the thing, you see it moving, you see the results. So that being said, Avi, how can people get in touch with you, follow you, the pack, the drill?
Yeah. Yeah. I can. find me on my website, pinskyconsulting.com. Anybody wants to chat for, complimentary free business wellness checkup, there's a link there. You can sign up. I have a Excel playbook that you can use to help set your targets, set your goals for your business, and kind of follow them along and see how things are going throughout the year. There's a link at the top. It says Prosperity Playbook. You go in there and you can download that free Excel. And if you need help using it, book a free call and I can walk you through a little bit of it. I'm also on LinkedIn. You might have to search for Avraham Pinsky, my full name, but if you search for Avi Pinsky, you'll probably find it as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, Avi, it's been awesome having you on here. I love talking about this stuff in the simplest of terms. Okay. And
Yeah,
you bring
for
that.
sure.
You don't complicate
Simple
it. You
English.
don't. Yeah. It's just everybody, we need to have control and understanding of our numbers. It'll change your life. It'll make you,
100%.
your business will be something you actually want to go to every day. Okay.
Yeah.
And miss when you're not there because you understand it. And the numbers are where you understand things. It really understands, it makes you understand what your business is actually doing, what it's producing, how it's producing. So take advantage of the free stuff here and the sheets and everything else Avi's got. And again, Avi, thank you for your time today. It's been just magnificent.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Sharpen the Spear podcast. If today's episode helped you think sharper, act smarter, or see new profit potential, do me a favor. Share it with a fellow home service owner and leave a quick review. Ready to find the profit hiding in your business? Head to sharpenthespearcoaching.com and book your free profit discovery call today. And until next time, keep sharpening.